Morning, everyone. So, let me start by saying I don't know what I'm doing today, but I wanted to share what's been going on in my life and I wanted to show this reading that I did around it. It's been a really rough season. I have been dealing with health issues of a family member, um, and hopefully everything is going okay. But um, I've felt very isolated in all of this. I felt very sort of alone. I am the eldest in my family, and I think I carry uh, a lot of that expectation of being the person that, especially in an Asian Indian family, the eldest is usually tasked with a lot of things, and it's not just Asian Indian families, but especially so. I think there's an expectation on the eldest child, um, and I've certainly tried to live up to that expectation. And while things are going better now, and I'm so grateful for that, and there has been help, for the most part, I've felt like emotionally I'm carrying this sort of burden alone. And then I had to compartmentalize a lot of those emotions and put them away just to be able to function, to be able to accomplish things without falling apart. And also, I have a full time job. So, which I'm very blessed to be able to work from home, um, especially in this time. I'm just so lucky and with the manager that I have. But, all of that to say, it has been bearable, but certainly because I've compartmentalized so many emotions and I've sort of pressed down so many things that finally this week has felt like it's my cat hair. This week has felt like my body has shut down because it finally had time to process the emotions. And I've felt lethargic, I felt fatigued, I have had random bouts of crying. um, I felt so completely tired that I will fall asleep on my rug in my living room with the lights on, and I wake up even after having had like 7, 8, 12 hours of sleep at one point, and I feel extremely drained. And it is just what I feel is my body processing. So I wanted to dive in to these feelings. Actually, even as I'm talking, my hands are kind of, I feel them tingling, I feel them sort of semi shaking. Um, and I think that is because there's so much stored in my body that I need to release. And I was sitting today, I know this is a really long introduction, but I was sitting down today and I was just really thinking, I can't work until I get some of this out, or until I understand what the heck is going on with me. And in my therapy practice, I do a lot of somatic therapy with my therapist. Like, we do a lot of releasing emotions in the body to be able to allow my nervous system to come down, to be able to function, and for catharsis. So I pulled from what I felt was maybe my saddest deck, or the imagery really helps me connect to feelings of grief. And this is the Oracle d'Or, and it is by Melissa Witherspoon, and the companion book um, is by Tora Matthews with contributions from Melissa Witherspoon. So it's very collaborative deck that is here. But it is also a deck based on the noirs of Odilon Redon. And it does really conjure up those feelings of grief, sadness, depression. And I'm there today. So I pulled the persona card, the aimlessness card, and the ephemerality card. So persona, absolutely beautiful but sad. The aimlessness card and the ephemerality card. You'll notice that all of these have floating heads. Oops, I think I tapped my mic. All of these have floating heads. And I read through the companion book, which I have on the side, but I also started diving into things that reminded me of this imagery. Um, and I posted them on my stories, and I want to go through them. Actually, the first one is a poem by Sabrina Benaim. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's from her book Depression and Other Magic Tricks, and I'll read it out. It's titled A Plain Truth. On the days I wake up and my name is a euphemism for depressed or anxious or whatever, I drink my coffee while the inanimate objects in my apartment talk at me. I do not try to make out anything they are saying. I cannot tell you the number of times I put my hair up into a bun only to take it right back down. Because I am afraid of the kink the elastic will leave. It's exhausting. What they don't tell you about self care, that it can make you feel like you are the coach, the captain, and every other player. Oh, and the mascot. It can make you feel especially like the mascot. And for me, that's really talking about masks. And in a way, these floating heads remind me of masks. The masks that I put on, especially this card, the persona card, is all about the mask that I put on. And I feel like in this moment, I've had to put on this mask of being competent and together and in control of her emotions so I can function, that I don't know who I am anymore, or in this moment, rather, I don't feel connected to who I am. I feel like I've forgotten the softer parts of myself, the parts where I can reach out. And I pulled from the extra cards of the Lonely Dreamer Tarot. So these are not tarot cards, but they almost function to me as oracle cards. When I say I pulled, I actually went through like the 10 or so cards in the expansion pack and just pulled what resonated. So this is Obligation, another head, actually. I think this is the beheading of John. Don't quote me on that, but anyway, this feels very much like an obligation that I have had to take on. And I'm sorry if I get emotional. And it's been exhausting. It's been exhausting. And I'll show you the rest of the tarot cards that I've pulled towards that in a bit. But I wanted to talk about something else, I guess. And that is the aimlessness that I feel. Because I've had to do this for so long and I feel so disconnected from everything else, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. On one hand, I know exactly what I'm doing, and on the other hand, I feel like I am. You know how you feel like things are automatic and you're just, your body is just running through the motions? That's what it feels like, but I don't know how to stop being an automaton and how to start being Angie again. I don't know if that makes any sense, but if you're listening to this, and you feel the same way, you're not alone. And I pulled the searching card, another floating head, just wandering around, completely aimless. Just thinking, okay, what do I do? I guess I just keep going forward. I guess I just keep floating. I guess I just keep doing what I've been doing because I don't have the time to think for or about myself right now. Um, and I read a poem by Rilke, um, from his Book of Hours. So it's, I believe the title is To My Younger Brother or To the Younger Brother. I'm not going to read the whole of it, but the last parts of it say, then suddenly you're left all alone with your body that can't love you and your will that can't save you. But now, like a whispering in dark streets, rumors of God run through your dark blood. And it feels like I'm missing this connection to my spirituality. And, for me, that is God. For other people, that's the universe, or their connection to the earth or nature. But there is always something deeper that we want to connect with. And I feel very disconnected from my body, from my own thoughts, my will. I really feel like I am just like somebody set a program in me, and actually I set that program in me, and it's just running through the program, right? Like it's just go to the hospital, call the doctors, do this, take care of this person, do that, get some work done, do this, go to sleep, wake up, don't think about it too much because you might fall apart, and then how are you going to do all these things? So that's what it feels like. And then we have ephemerality, and this is Piro, I think. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but doubtful. Um, the sad clown, the one that was in love with a woman who left him for another circus performer or clown. I'm not so sure of the legend or the story behind that, but ephemerality is like that liminal space, right? Like that things are fleeting, they come and they go. And let me see if I can pull this out. This is the revealing card. I know that life is short. I know that when life seems long, it really isn't, and I don't want to waste life kind of stuck in routine and doing things by rote, doing things according to this program in my head. I want to connect with myself again, and with God, with spirituality, with my emotions. And I'm having a really difficult time doing that. So I do want to talk about the significance of the floating heads, or decapitation, I guess, according to Jung. And this is a quote from one of his works. So, beheading is significant symbolically as the separation of the understanding from the great suffering and grief which nature inflicts on the soul. It is an emancipation of the cogitatio, which is situated in the head, a freeing of the soul from the trammels of nature. Its purpose is to bring about, as in Dorn, a unio mentalis in the overcoming of the body. It's a lot of big words, but especially in terms of the concept of Negredo. So Jung would use alchemy to describe individuation and relate it to psychology. Negredo in alchemy is the blackening, right, of the materials. And Jung would say that Negredo is this period of great suffering and grief. So he's really talking about how that beheading, or these images of floating heads or decapitation, symbolically is separating, and this is how I understand it, the thinking mind from the feeling of the great suffering and grief, and allowing it to be free. So that's how I look at that personally. I'm not an expert in Jungian philosophy, psychology by any means. So I just wanted to share that. And I did pull tarot cards as well from the Lonely Dreamer in relation to each of these oracle cards. So I'm going to set these aside for now. And I pulled the Four of Cups for persona, the Knight of Swords for aimlessness, and the Emperor for ephemerality. And I want to talk about that. The Four of Cups to me is this feeling of apathy, of numbness, and it's a feeling where you put yourself in that state because you need to boundary yourself off from something. Cups are the suit of the emotions, water energy, and the four is a number that is equated with stability. And it feels like it's very essential for me in this season. If I want to be, I don't want to say stable enough, but like if I want to be balanced enough to, or if I want to just be contained, there, let's use that word. If I want to be contained enough to be able to function, I need to put things away for a while that will cause me to break down. Now, if that is done often, that's unhealthy. But containment is actually very healthy when it's used in certain situations. When you are in the middle of a trauma, for example, and you can't deal with it, your brain will contain. It becomes unhealthy when you don't return to the container to look at that at a different time, right? Like, if you can't deal with it right now, put it down. But eventually, you're going to have to pick it up and look at it. And it feels like this is all I've done. And I think why my body is reacting the way that it is it's calling on me to open the container slowly, little bit, release a little at a time, and start to process now that I have the time to process. And the longer that I go on not processing, the more my body feels in shock, the more my body feels like it wants to act out. In internal family systems, there are these, your self is divided into different parts, but there is a core self. And when one part is shouting and acting out, it just requires listening to. It requires your core self to pay some attention to the wounded inner child, to the person that feels all this obligation. What part of yourself feels like the fixer, the person that feels like they need to keep it together. You need to pay attention to that part so that you can come back to your core self and have your core self validate that part and say it's okay, you can rest. And then I pulled the Knight of Swords for aimlessness. So the Knight of Swords for me, out of all the knights, has the clearest purpose. It's the Knight of Swords is an archetype that has like blinders on, like I will block out everything else. I will focus on the goal and the objective, and I will accomplish the mission. And you would think it's the opposite of aimlessness, because it's like, what do you call it? It's like a target, right? Like they only see the target. But it feels aimless to me in this moment, because I feel like I'm doing this and it's not my purpose, and how do I explain this? Like, it sounds very, ooh, it's not your purpose. Look, I am happy to be there for my loved ones. I am happy to care for them in my capacity. But I think my body and my mind are reminding me, okay, when will you start to care for yourself? When will you start to do things that serve you? And what is a knight, especially of swords, without purpose? I feel like I need to acknowledge that I've done good things, and I've invested of myself, and I've taken a step away from my world, from my purpose, from my dreams, and I can go back to that. Like, this is a time that I think I need to acknowledge that I've done that. Thank myself for doing that. It was a good thing, but now I need to go back. And then we have ephemerality and the Emperor. The Emperor, to me, wants to be in control. But in life, you can't always be in control. But you can control how you react. You can control how you behave. There are certain things that are always in my power to do. And I need to let go of what I can't control. And I need to pick up what I can control. And even if it is something small, I need to make peace with the fact that I can't control the bigger stuff, but I am able to control some of the other stuff. And that's been really, really helpful for me. And then I pulled messages from the Lonely Dreamer Tarot just to close out this reading. And this is not a reading for me that gives me a solution. This is a reading for me that helps me understand myself. So this is like step one in exploration, step one in just validation. And maybe the solution is just to validate, just to hear myself say these things out loud. Because I use tarot not only to provide me with a direction, but to help me understand what the hell is going on in my mind, to give me words when my body is flaring up and I can't find the words because everything is chaos. So we have the Queen of Swords, we have the Knight of Cups, we have the Five of Swords, and we have the Fool. The Queen of Swords, for me, I feel so disconnected to this depiction of the Queen of Swords. This is a Valkyrie, Brunhild Valkyrie. She is so raw and vulnerable, and to me the Queen of Swords reads more like this from the Tarot of the Mystical Moments. So let me pull this out. The Queen of Swords to me has always read more composed, more separated, more in her head, detached even, is able to look at things from like a bird's eye view. This Queen of Swords is raw, vulnerable. She's naked. She's almost fiery in her energy. But what I want to take from this is actually the Queen of Swords is very much associated with grieving, with loneliness, with the thoughts that come into your head and cause you depression and anxiety. And it's a queen in reverse, right? When I talk about it that way. But it's also a necessary component to be able to go within yourself, to be able to be as brutally honest with yourself as you are with people, and to not detach yourself from the truth that you are learning about yourself, but to face it head on, naked, raw. Then we have the Knight of Cups. This is Chiron. The Knight of Cups, I also pulled this card out from the Tarot of the Mystical Moments because how beautiful. She's strumming a heart in the middle of a lotus flower. And here he's strumming a cello or playing a cello. And the Knight of Cups is all about regaining that sense of wonder, that sense of awe, that sense of beauty. And it's difficult to do, especially when you feel so far away, so far separated and removed from that, from any sort of joy. But the Knight of Cups asks you to cultivate joy, asks me to cultivate joy. And it feels like I need to have a season where I feed my pleasure centers, where I feed things that give me life, things that make me feel again, because I've been so numb the past month and a half, to be honest. And here we have the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords to me is a self-sabotage card. I don't see this as other people sort of winning over you. It's me hurting myself. And there is a great temptation, because I am very comfortable because of my borderline personality disorder, type 4, I believe. It's the quiet BPD. Because of that, there is a temptation in me to wallow, to embrace the numbness, embrace the sadness. It's easier for me to access that, which is why I fight so hard against it, I feel. But once I'm in it, it feels like I can stay here for a while. And it's not about seeking joy, it's about remaining in that space. And the challenge to me is to keep keep separating my thoughts from my feelings, listening to my body, knowing that what I think is just a thought. It's not necessarily truth. And if I can distill what I am imagining, what I'm feeling into, this is just a thought, this is just a feeling, I can separate that, the beheaded, decapitated, flying head once again. I can allow myself to be free. I can step off the cliff. I can take the next step instead of remaining where I am. So that's the reading. It is like a diary. I should probably call this Dear Diary, Dear Tarot Diary. This is how I feel today. And I just wanted to share something raw and also hopefully how you can use tarot to map out emotions. And there's no other point other than just giving a voice to my emotions right now. That's all I want to do with this. It is a first step away from being numb. So, thank you for joining me as always. Take care. Bye.